25 kilometers outside of Lunenburg, and you find the village of Kingsburg and Hurdle Beach. At low tide, one of the nicest white sand beaches in all of Nova Scotia. This is also the start of the Gaff Point Trail. The beach got its name because it's alongside the old Leonard Hurdle land grant from the 1700s. This area and Kingsburg, Gaff's Point are quintessentially Nova Scotian, full of stories and adventure. Hurdles Beach is one of two large beaches in the Kingsburg area. Hurdles Beach itself was designated in 1975 under the Beaches Protection Act. It's bookended by Gaff's Point and Mosier Pond ahead of me, and Hell Point behind me. Yeah, that's right, that's hell. In Nova Scotia, even hell is pretty. Kingsburg itself has a fascinating history. The area was a popular spot for the Mi'kmaq to fish in summer and escape the inland heat. Around 1604, Samuel Champlain seems to have been the first European to map the area, generally calling it Cape de la Heve, now La Have. The area became popular in the 1600s for fishermen from Europe and New England as a place to stop and dry fish before long journeys. This was because of the demand for dried cod back in Europe. Champlain's first chart of the La Have included the area that would become Upper and Lower Kingsburg and Gaff Point. It seems unlikely Champlain ever envisioned a permanent settlement here for the French back in those days, because immigration from France to Nova Scotia was still very much in the future. Ultimately, it was over 100 years later that the British Board of Trade and its president, Lord Halifax, advertised for Germans and Swiss to come and settle in Nova Scotia. They were considered hard-working, and as it happened, King George of England was himself German-born. King George issued a land grant of 1,350 acres to 5 Protestant settlers on July 5th, 1787. And so it was that one of those settlers, a 40-year-old Hans Jacob Mosier, packed up his life as a blacksmith and brought his family here. The Mi'kmaq used this land for thousands of years as part of their shellfish harvesting. And that Mosier name I mentioned earlier, well, it's everywhere. That's Mosier Bay, this is Mosier Pond. And those buildings, well, in 1988, Brian McKay Lyons, a very famous Nova Scotia architect, reimagined this area as an agricultural village. And he called it Showback after one of the original landholders in this area, Christian Showback. You can now rent those as cottages and meeting spaces. When Champlain came upon this area, he is said to have written in his journal, "On the 8th of the same month, we sighted Cape de la Have, to the east of which is a bay, containing several islands covered with fir trees. On the mainland, there are oaks, elms, and birches." Most people would consider the beach the start of the Gaff Point hike, but this is officially where it begins. And from here, you enter 124 acres of nature preserve, forest, and oceanfront. One of the things that makes Gaff Point so special is this is the last remaining undeveloped headland in all of Lunenburg County. Back in 1999, the Nature Conservancy of Canada and some local groups got together to try and preserve this area. And by 2002, they had assembled 23 parcels to make up this protected space. It may not seem like it inside this forest, but Gaff Point is an exposed headland, and it's subject to the destructive forces of hurricanes and storms. In fact, after the recent Hurricane Dorian, this trail was closed for quite some time due to damage. As we near the tip of Gaff Point, we can see West Ironbound Island in the distance. Another popular place to visit, but it takes a boat. As you walk along this shore, you can just imagine what this must have looked like to Champlain, to the Mi'kmaq, and to the early settlers as they arrived here. The forest, the exposed bedrock, and an ocean that is sometimes ferocious and sometimes a gentle giant. At places along this trail, the only thing that tells you you're in the right place are these paint markings. You know, there used to be a Heritage Moment commercial about Inukjuks, and the end line was, "They'll know we were here." And I don't know who made these or whether they're done for fun, but they certainly add something to this site. This is the midway point of the Gaff Point hike, and it's named the William Schwartz Memorial Point after the former National Board Chair of the Nature Conservancy of Canada. One of the special features of Gaff Point is a secret beach at Sandy Cove, and not everybody seems to be able to find it. So after the break, I'm going searching for Gaff Point's secret. Having passed William Schwartz Memorial Point, I'm winding my way down the inland side of Gaff Point. Through the forest is Ship's Channel and Mosier Bay, and then beyond the LaHave River. The area on this side is full of islands, and like Kingsburg, they too have their own history. 2 years before King George handed out land grants on the mainland, he granted the LaHave Islands to a group of colonists with the intent to build a large new colony. However, unlike in Kingsburg, few of the families ever settled on the islands, or for that matter, even in the area. After their death, the land was auctioned off to German and English settlers. It never became the big colony King George envisioned. Rather, by 1838, there were around 20 families in a fishing community growing their own produce. These days, few of those islands have permanent residences, though many host summer cottages. When the British Board of Trade, led by the President, Lord Halifax, encouraged settlers to come from Germany and Switzerland to this area, he did so because he felt they were hard workers who wouldn't complain. And those families have stayed here for generations. Throughout Lunenburg County, and Kingsburg in particular, a lot of the German and Swiss names still remain, as does the language. There are words like sauerkraut, which you'd be familiar with, Solomon Gundy, which is a type of pickled herring, but there are more fun ones. My favorite being obstaculus, meaning cranky, and Dutch mess, another word for a type of hodgepodge. Gaff Point is a landscape mix of conifer forests, heaths, and grasslands. It may seem surprising, but this small point is actually a really important part of the coastal landscape in this area. The point and the surrounding islands provide some protection from the Atlantic Ocean to the entrance of the LaHave River and the coastline beyond. As well, it serves as the link between two sensitive beach dune systems. There are a lot of different species of plant and animal which rely on the habitat that Gaff Point provides. It's like we just walked into an aviary. All these trees with their branches hiding the various species of birds that call Gaff Point home. I mentioned earlier that the Nova Scotia Nature Trust, the Nature Conservatory of Canada, and the Kingsburg Coastal Conservancy all work together to protect this land. But as the local group, it's the Kingsburg Coastal Conservancy that is most hands-on in caring for the land these days. They were founded in 1995 and are working to both preserve land on the Kingsburg Peninsula and also protect traditional access to Nova Scotia's shorelines, something which has been under threat in recent years. This organization has worked very hard. They also manage West Ironbound Island, along with other properties, and are one of the very few organizations in Nova Scotia which the federal government designated as eligible to accept gifts of ecologically important land and issue tax receipts for their donation. So as I come back up the path that I came down on to get to the point, we're getting close to the turnoff for the secret beach. But really, you have to keep it a secret. Sometimes mistaken for the secret beach, this is not. This is just Gravel Cove. The secret beach is just up this pathway. Is the beach I'm headed for really secret? Of course not. If you Google secret beach at Gaff Point, you will find numerous references to it. It's certainly off the main trail, and the trail does get grown in a bit now and again, so the route can make you uncertain at times, unsure if you're going in the right direction. But it's appeared enough times on Instagram, it likely doesn't qualify as secret anymore. Though if you don't realize you're actually looking for a spot with the real name Sand Cove, you may not find it. And many people do come away disappointed having not found it. And so down there is the secret beach. There's no ladder, there's no stairs, just a rope and a little bit of hope that it holds. It's tricky, though not impossible to get down without the aid of this rope. Though going back up is trickier still. It certainly adds a bit of adventure to your hike. Between the trail and this climb down, the beach itself is not for everyone. Though the view is certainly nice, even if you choose to stay at the top. One of the things that makes this beach so special is the colors, just the amazing colors that you see in the rocks along this cliff face. Another thing that makes it special is simply the fact this is a sand beach, which is a little unusual out here at Gaff Point. You may have noticed that it's rocky all the way around. Even at Gravel Cove, not far from here, it's mostly cobble that makes up that beach. So if you're looking for a spot where you can be protected from the wind by the cliffside, and where you can avoid the crowds of Hurdles Beach, then this, the secret beach, may be just what you need and just what you're looking for. There are secrets and moments on every hike, and at Gaff's Point, finding this beach is one of them for so many people. All that's left for me here is to cool off. And I'm reminded looking across the bay that there's a beloved local bakery that I must take the time to make a stop at. The LaHave Bakery is a popular stop for visitors and locals alike. You even get a cable car ferry ride to get here. I'm going to pick something up to tide me over until our next stop. The Nature Conservancy of Canada has done a great job working with local groups to protect lands like Gaff's Point for public use. After the break, we're going to head along the south shore towards Halifax to another very popular hiking spot that the Nature Conservancy has protected for the public.
Oh, come on, won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine.
You've almost certainly heard of Peggy's Cove. Well, about 11 kilometers closer to Halifax, you'll find the High Head Trail. Popular with birders and hikers, it's just outside the village of Prospect. It's a great place to see Nova Scotia's coastal barrens. Much of the history of this area was never formally written down, but instead comes from oral histories. There is evidence of seasonal Mi'kmaq settlement along the area this trail passes through. And though it's hard to imagine this rocky landscape as a garden, on Portuguese maps from the 1500s, this area was identified as the River of Gardens. High Head Trail crosses in front of the Dr. Bill Friedman Nature Preserve. It was established by the Nature Conservancy of Canada in 2001. It's 370 acres, protect pristine coastal lands. Dr. Friedman was a well-known and well-respected ecologist and a professor at Dalhousie. In fact, he was my ecology professor. But more important than that, he spent 25 years as a volunteer with the Nature Conservancy of Canada. The trail meanders along the Atlantic coast and Shad Bay. This is a beautiful spot, but it's not a trail for people with mobility issues. Much of the trail travels over rocky and sometimes indistinct pathways. After a rain, parts of it can also be a little boggy in places. However, it's a great place for kids who will like to explore in the rocks and watch for seals. Places like Peggy's Cove tend to get all the attention, but personally I think the views and scenery around this location are far more compelling. Coastal barrens such as those found here at High Head are important ecological areas in Nova Scotia. High Head is part of an area of barrens that stretches from Halifax Harbour right around along St. Margaret's Bay. They are very distinct: sparse tree cover, exposed bedrock, usually granite around here, some areas of bog, and very stressful growing conditions. Coastal barrens are one of the 3 types of barren in Nova Scotia, the other being highland and inland barrens, but it's the coastal type which is the most culturally important and historically accessible in the province. The exposed bedrock and acidic soils make it really difficult for forests to grow. So these little clumps of coastal forests are about all you see in this area, but they're really important. They protect the white-tailed deer, porcupine, and all kinds of other animals that you might not otherwise expect to see along a coastal barren. The coastline of this reserve is really important to all kinds of marine animals, especially birds. There's quite a few different species of marine bird that actually live right along this coast. The high-head bonsai tree. If you've ever tried to plant a tree in Nova Scotia, you know you're going to hit rock. So it's no surprise there's so much granite here. But these granite barrens play a hugely important role. Most of the waters in the high-head area drain directly to the ocean. And the granite acts as almost a purifying agent, cleaning the water before it hits the oceans. And those waters provide nutrients to the plankton that ultimately feeds all kinds of marine life out there, from porpoise to dolphins and whales, and the many fish species you find off these shores. You know, you walk through places like this, and it's no wonder they called this New Scotland. This reminds me of many of the hikes I've done in parts of Scotland and Ireland and throughout the British Isles. The power of the ocean is evident everywhere along High Head, from the boulders and the rocks that have been thrown up just like pebbles, to lobster traps that were at one time offshore somewhere, hoping to catch someone's dinner. Being along the coast, the experience along this trail changes with the seasons and the weather. It's close to here that the eye of Hurricane Juan made landfall in 2004. I'm fortunate it's so calm and warm here today. The sun sets over the water here too, so it's become a popular spot for evening hikes. Sometimes you even see photography sessions going on. A late summer evening along this trail not only treats you with views, but also the possibility of wildlife along the shore and out in the bay. The High Head Trail is popular with hikers and birders, really anyone who's interested in wildlife. But around this area, there's so much more to do. High Head Trail is particularly spectacular at sunset. Now, wherever your next walkabout takes you, don't forget that sunsets aren't always endings, often they're beginnings.
Hey, come on.